these are the paying sponsors for the show. If you want to sponsor the show, you can contact me for more information. Shoot me an email at neveragainstudio@gmail.com. Finishers MMA. 3761 Nicholas Street, Easton, PA. If you don't know who these guys are by now, how dare you? They do a show with me called Now We Go. Zach and JM Holland run 10th Planet Jujitsu in Bethlehem. They have another school in Allentown, and that's John Thor Blank. These guys are elite black belts in the game. They are doing things no one else is doing in the area. If you're looking for self-defense, if you're looking to get in shape, if you're looking to just get your life back on track, Jujitsu is for you. Check them out. You can find information on them at finishersmma.com. Zach and JM are the teachers over at the Bethlehem School. At Finishers MMA is for all of their social media. And you can check out Now We Go, which is a podcast we do every Monday. But those guys sponsor the show, and they're beasts. Go check out finishersmma.com. Sabraki Jewelry Design. Matt, I've known Matt almost my entire life, and it's pretty cool. He's got a great story, and he's going to eventually come on the podcast. He went to become a jeweler, and he went to school in California, and he got he finished with a degree as a graduate jeweler gemologist with a design in and wax in 2001. He's worked in both manufacturing and retail across the country. I've been following his story the whole time, and it's really cool watching him grow. And we talked about doing this for years, and he's finally at a point where he's working for a legit, well-known jeweler in Philadelphia, and that's D'Antonio and Klein Jewelers in Philly, and it's the city's highest-rated custom jeweler and manufacturer, and you can check them out on Yelp and Google. What Matt specializes in is custom-made jewelry and is a master at CAD design. He's worked on the finisher ring, and he's actually tried to do some stuff with Never Again stuff in the past, and we're working on projects, but we're talking about anything from can openers all the way up to an extremely expensive engagement ring, and it's cool watching him build that on CAD and seeing the design work in the background. He's working with clients from start to finish during the design and manufacturing progress to ensure peace of mind and superior quality with generations to come. Jewelers Row, quality and professional, and he's got affordable prices. He also offers repair services, jewelry restoration, and insurance appraisals, as well as pre-owned watch sales and services. All inquiries are welcome. You can check out his Instagram at sabraki.jewelry.design. It'll be right here as well. For design inspirations, call 484-426-3735. You can email him at sabrakidesign@gmail.com. All of this is connected through the Instagram account, and you can just message him if you have any questions as well. And he's setting up appointments, and you can hit him up for appointments in Philly and Lehigh Valley, and we're hoping he comes back up this way and sets shop up as well. And that's Sabraki Jewelry Designs, and thank you for sponsoring the show. All Valley Rooter and Plumbing is a one-stop shop for all of your plumbing needs. You can reach them at allvalleyrooter.net, or you can call them at 610-762-1656. They are fully registered, fully insured, and they have a 1-year parts labor guarantee. It is the plumber that we use for the show. Any problems that we've had down here in the studio, he's working on some projects for me now. He's stopped by several times. He's working on the studio above this studio. I personally put my guarantee on him. He's a close friend of mine. We grew up together. He told me the story about how he grew this business, and I'm impressed with Jared, and he does really good work. So if you need a plumber, do me a favor, do Jared a favor, call him. All Valley Rooter and Plumbing, 24-hour service. The number again is 610-762-1656, and you can get all the information you need at allvalleyrooter.net. And his social media is at All Valley Rooter on Facebook and Instagram. Rips Auto Detail. If you don't know who Rips is at this point, you are a first-time listener, but that's okay. We're going to tell you all about him right now. Rips Auto Detail, 630 North Nelson Street, Allentown, PA. Rips, he's the best. I'm sorry, he's the best in the area. Highline paint correction, ceramic coating, and you can check out all of his work online. The best place to follow him is on Instagram at Rips Auto Detail. His daily posts of what he's doing over there. If you need your car restored, a boat restored, a plane restored, I don't care what you need restored, he will fix it. I've seen the guy bring things back from the dead. I've seen him work on clients' cars that are just continually bringing them in to get kept up with. He has a ton of different packages, and he can find one for you. So that's Rips Auto Detail, 630 North Nelson Street, Allentown, PA. You can follow him at Rips Auto Detail, and you can get a hold of him through there as well. If you go onto his social media, it's going to have his number and further information on how to get to him. I'm telling you, follow the social media. Give him a follow, show him some love, and check out what he's doing. He's high level, and he's one of our favorites over at the show. So check him out. Luke Delmar Custom Knives. They are high-end custom knives made and forged from scratch. Luke Delmar, friend of the show, out of Hellertown, Pennsylvania. He offers bladesmithing, farrier services, and blacksmithing as well. You can take classes over there. That is the thing that I push. I have a couple people that went over there, and you take a class and you learn how to make the knife. You start from step one all the way to the end, and when you're done with the class, you're walking away with your own custom knife that you made. The classes fill up pretty fast, so I need you to go over there and check it out. You can get all the information on classes and his custom knives on www.lukedelmar.com. Custom knives, classes, and more. Check him out. Follow him at Luke Delmar. Instagram's where it's at. All of his stuff's on there. He's got videos. He's forging constantly. He's been on some TV shows, and he's a friend of the show. So go check him out. It's Luke Delmar Custom Knives, farrier, bladesmith, blacksmith. 5 and Dime Easton. Local skate shop in Easton, Pennsylvania, 140 Center Northampton Street, Easton, PA. You can call the shop at 610-393-7448. They carry a lot of local brands, and they carry Fucked as well. They're the only ones that actually are allowed to sell the Fucked clothing line in store. So if you're one of those guys looking for stuff you can't grab anywhere else and some custom things, it's in that shop. I've worked with these guys. We've had them on the podcast. It's awesome seeing the Easton skate scene have their own store. The store itself, it's super cool. It's skater friendly, skater owned, and you got to go in and check it out for yourself. Then that's 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA, and check out the sales they got going on. Like I said, a lot of local stuff in there. We're going to collab on some stuff. I'm really glad to have them as a sponsor. It's awesome to see the skate scene in Easton have their own spot. So take my word, you got to go in, got to check it out. You can also check them out online. So it is 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA, and their number is 610-393-7448. Check them out. Give them a follow at 5 and Dime Easton on all social media platforms. BTG Blasting. Back to Glory Blasting. Why is it called that? Because this guy's bringing stuff back from the dead. Old decks, siding, anything you need. You got a business. He does commercial and residential pressure washing. This guy's got the equipment to give you the best look possible. You got a little one at home, it ain't doing it. He's bringing it all over. He's bringing it over, and he's knocking everything down, knocking the mold down, the dirt down. I've seen his work. He's done stuff at my parents' house, and he also just started doing virus disinfection. So if you have a business and you need it disinfected because of the coronavirus and all that, he has taken classes and is completely certified. He is now doing this studio monthly, and I can't thank him enough. I have guests that worry about things going on down here. We are now fully disinfected, and that's because of Back to Glory Blasting. It's fully insured, and it's commercial and residential pressure washing and virus disinfection at this time. You can reach him at 484-241-1711. You can also email him at btgblasting@gmail.com. Check them out. If you guys need any projects done, it's still summertime. You can get your decks redone, your siding redone. You got a party coming up, hit them up. If you got an office, you're running a kitchen, I know a ton of people that own kitchens, you can have it disinfected monthly for a fee, and he comes out and does it monthly. So you can, you know, it's take all your worries away and just get this stuff done for the disinfectant, especially the way times are now. So that's BTG Blasting, and we thank him for being a sponsor. Glenn Honan, Legacy Landscaping. If you don't know this name, you are not from the area. Glenn is a really good friend of mine, and he just got a new landscaping company back up. We did some apparel for him, and it's Legacy Landscaping. Glenn is the best in the area for landscaping. He's been doing it almost his entire life. I mean, before I was doing any of this, I worked for Glenn, and what he's doing now, it's awesome. It's awesome to see him back in action getting landscaping done. But he can cover all of your landscaping needs. You can follow him at Legacy Landscape, and you can reach them at 610-533-3669. Any questions you have with outside projects, whether you want to do hardscaping or you're looking to put in a pond, put some boulders out in the backyard, have some steps coming up, this guy can handle it all and more. There is not one thing that they're afraid to tackle, so you can reach them at 610-533-3669. What else can I say? He's a good friend of the show, and thanks for being a sponsor. Crawlspacerepairs.com. This is obviously for Crawlspace Repairs. What's Crawlspace Repairs? It's all the things that you don't want to do at your home, and you should hire them to do it. They are a family-run business, and they have over 120 years experience. They are specialized in crawlspace repair, encapsulation, and waterproofing. They provide exceptional workmanship and the highest quality materials. They have highly skilled technicians. They are also bonded and fully insured. They always provide free estimates and lifetime warranty for all waterproofing jobs. You can ask about their price match as well. So when you do that, you're going to need to call 1-570-476-5866. You can also go directly to their website, which is crawlspacerepairs.com. If you have any crawlspace repair needs, please contact them. 1-570-476-5866. That's crawlspacerepairs.com. All right, Never Again Radio, episode 71. Welcome to Never Again Radio, man. It's only been 5 years we've been trying to do this. I'm trying to think, when I reached out to you, you had both locations in Nazareth and you had your one in Jersey. And then I think Zach and JM just started maybe using you guys, or he started talking to me about it. And then one of my best friends, Jer, who helps out with all this stuff, his son Tucker was doing BMX, so they were reaching out to you for his regiments.
Yep. So originally we had a small space in Nazareth, actually inside Nazareth Barbell for a while.
I was going to say, I thought it was in there.
Yeah, so I started there. It was only about a 600 square foot space, and then over time we grew a little bit. So then I ended up moving over closer to the high school over that way. So we got a bigger space. It was probably about 3,000 square feet. It was actually 1,000 square feet, and then we kept adding as we had the room to grow within that space. So it worked out. So we started at 600, we went to 1,000, and then we crept up to 3,000, and then that's when we started talking originally about possibly getting together to do this. And then JM, I think actually Zach was the first one to come over, then JM, and then Grace. Yeah. You know how they go. They travel in a pack. So
those guys are awesome.
Yeah. So then then over time we ended up opening up a second facility in Alpha, New Jersey. And then over time we consolidated to just the one in New Jersey. It was a newer facility. It was laid out better for us. It's closer to my house. My commute now is like 2 miles versus 30 minutes.
That's crazy. So you were running 3 schools at the same time?
Yeah. It was freaking pretty insane.
Do you have partners with you and things to make it easier?
No, it's just me.
Oh my God.
And we have, then we also have a bunch of school contracts. So we're contracted through Phillipsburg High School. We work with all their sport teams. We're contracted through Nazareth High School. We work with their athletics and Wilson High School. So we have a lot of moving parts. I got some great guys that work with me.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a business partner, but I have about 5 guys that work with me that are amazing. But now we're down to 1. We still have all the school contracts, so we're we're
That's got to
dipping
be
and
so much
diving.
easier now
It
in
is.
one facility.
It's huge, man. It's freaking huge. Bro.
So were you having to like drive to each every day?
I was probably, and that's what happened, man. I was probably in the car more than I was at the facility, and I hated it. Like I wanted to be, I'm like one of these guys. Like I want to be in the trenches. I want to coach. Like that's my passion. Like I like doing all the other stuff. I'm starting to fall in love with the business side of it a little bit. Right, that took me a couple of years to kind of get into. I mean, I just kind of wanted to hit the ground running with all that stuff. So over time, I adapted to that. But I'm glad I'm down to one now. It's just my life it's still pretty hectic, but it's doable. You know what I mean?
Now, for anyone who doesn't know exactly who you guys are, what you do, what do you guys offer?
So we're made strength and conditioning, right? So the idea was, so when I originally started years ago, like 1998 was when I first started like training and doing all that stuff. My first job, I actually worked in a correctional facility. I was a teacher, like basically recreation phys ed. So I've always been around this stuff. And then over years, about 2000, my now wife, we moved out to Colorado. So I lived out there for a little bit, and I was training out there, and I got hooked up training competitive skiers. So that was my first taste of like training people for performance, right? So, and as things went on, we ended up moving back. Long story short, we came back to Jersey, which I'm not quite sure why, right? Maybe we should have stayed in Colorado. But anyway, we moved back this way, and then the idea was opening up the facility to cater towards the athletic population, right? So we train athletes of all levels, like you said, Tucker, and in all sports, right? We're training kids for BMX, for football, Jujitsu, all that stuff, right? So our facility was geared around taking athletes, helping them increase their performance. We have all these systems built into it. So then so we train anywhere from middle school athletes to professional level athletes. We have pro baseball players, guys preparing for the combine, all that stuff. So it's a very diverse population, but we also started over the years, we added in the adult population as well, just because we wanted to get, we felt like we could reach that population as well. So, we basically are an appointment-only facility. So we offer, it's sort of like you'll schedule an appointment. Everything's done online. You come in, you train, you work out, you're training with a coach who's taking you through. Mainly, again, it's sports-based. So we're working on speed, power, explosiveness, those type of things. And then basically we have athletes for a couple months, and then they go play their sport or compete in whatever their sport is,
That must have been a mountain of work to go from correctional to skiing to the top tier facility that you're doing now. What about doing the ski instructing? Is that where you kind of started realizing that you could build a person to be better and faster? Because you weren't really doing that at the prison.
No, so I was just a teacher, right? We just did like recreation, right? So I helped them with phys ed and that type of stuff, right? So obviously that job was a very daunting task. You want to talk about like a negative atmosphere. You don't get worse than that, man. So over time,
wears on you.
and like when you're in that type of field or your passion is that, right? You're a passionate person. You're always on the go, and you're positive, right? So when you get sucked down with that negativity, it freaking sucks. So doing that, I knew I wanted to move on to that type of stuff, but it was, it goes back to systems, right? It took us a very long time to develop the system we have now, but now, life is easy. My place can run, without me for the most part now. That was my goal. I had one goal a couple of years ago. I read this book. It was called Start With Why, right, by Simon Sinek. So basically the gist of the book was everything needs to have a why, not a how, not a what, right? So why am I doing this? Why are we training this way? Why are we going to use this method and not this method, right? So when I did that, and I was like, okay, so for me, my why was, okay, I want to help athletes, but I also want to help my employees, right? So I wanted to get my guys to the point where I can put one thing with them is help them get better at coaches, right? And then it makes my life easier too, right? So I'm helping them become better coaches, better strength coaches. In the meantime, it's taking more responsibility from my plate because now they can do more. So now I'm able to kind of, I mean, I'd like to wish I could just chill out, but I'm not chilling out. But you know what I mean? Like, it's easy. Like if I need to go to a school and do some work there, my gym can be operating with the guys I have over here, vice versa. You know, I can send a guy to a school. Like I have a guy that comes up to Nazareth and works with the Nazareth teams. I have a guy that goes to Wilson.
Oh, so you guys are mobile on that aspect as well.
Oh, we're all over the place.
So if a school
dude.
wants to come to you, their athletes aren't coming over to Jersey. You're working with them.
We're on
in
site.
The school system
we're
on site.
Yep. So we're contracted through the schools. We also recently received an affiliation with St. Luke's Health Network. So we work a lot with their with the orthopedic side of things, right? So we'll have athletes returning, you know, for ACL tears, things like that. So, you know, so we affiliate with them. So we also work with them throughout some of the schools as well. So yeah, we send our guys to the school and then we work with their teams right on site. You know, all the schools have their weight rooms and their tracks and all that stuff. So we do everything right there.
When you started building athletes on the ski team, what was that feeling like the first time you saw you were shaving time off and you were saying like, man, I'm pretty good at I'm good at building an athlete out?
I think that was the biggest thing, right? So like when I first started training, it was like personal training. You know, somebody wanted to lose some weight or somebody was maybe training for a 5K, right? So, but then when I started working with, I actually was approached by two competitive skiers. And I started working with them out there. And yeah, it's like as you started to see it, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't know shit at the time. You know what I mean? I should probably mail those people their money back.
Not if you helped them.
But like, you know, over time, you know, strength goes a long way, right? In those type of sports. So as they got a little stronger, their time started getting a little faster. So then you start to kind of put those things together. And again, you're talking early 2001, 2002-ish, this really wasn't a big thing, right? Like it was. Like training for sports was just going for a 5-mile run or, you know, going to the park, running hills or, you know, doing something like that. So it was fairly new. So not in a million years did I think I could actually turn it into a career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then over time, I was fortunate to build slow. And I always say we did it the smart way. You know, we started small, and as we built, we grew. I mean, it was a pain in the ass moving and carrying
all
shit
that
around.
Stuff. I mean, I told you when I came down here, we moved the studio 5 times. Yeah. We're moving it one more time. I moved this so many times, I tell everybody, I don't have anyone to call to help move shit.
You're on your own now, man. I hear you.
I hit up all the past guests.
Yeah, man.
Hey.
Yeah, we're making a party. We get pizza. We have everything, right?
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass. We put turf in our one facility. I bought it from a softball facility. And I tell you what, we had 17 people that were helping moving that shit.
Yeah.
I said again, when I leave, that shit's staying in there.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the next guy.
Well, I told Jesse, because he's always like, we don't need to move the studio. And I have an idea. Now it's officially locked down of like what I want to do. And I can picture it in my head, and I'm sure you picture things, and then, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Once you see stuff and then you start getting into, you're more business-oriented, you can tackle it. So I'm like, all right, I know what I'm doing. But it will be the last time it's moved. Because I thought about doing it in my house, and then I was like, I don't just want, then I'm in my work all day.
Yeah.
All day. And then I'm like, nope. And then there was something that happened where I was down here, and I wanted a break. And I just, you look around, it's around you. There's no break.
You can't get away from it. I hear
but
you.
yeah, one more time, and then that's the last move. Professional studio built out, and then it's done. Yeah,
I hear you, man. And that's why I feel like we're at like if I could have designed my space on a piece of paper, it would be the space we're in right now.
That's awesome.
You know, so I mean, for me, I mean, I got great landlords. I mean, even during this COVID stuff,
that's important too.
They stepped up with me. They suspended my rent during all this time, so they were phenomenal with all that stuff. So you know, you can't.
And nobody knows how hard it is to find that perfect fit with the landlord. I mean, we had nightmare stories with just the different places we were at.
Neighbors, when you deal with some neighbors, you know,
we're in this is what's great about this is I'm 3 floors down.
Nobody even knows.
Nobody hears down here. We have fights on the weekends. Turn the Sonos all the way up, yelling and shit. Yeah, do whatever you want. I mean, we don't get. I mean, it gets a little crazy, but it doesn't matter. Like Jay always tells me, he's like, I don't ever, because when I see him out front of it, anyone ever say anything? He's like, nope, no complaints.
Yeah.
That's huge. But like if you're stuck in a place with bad neighbors, I remember Zach telling me that like when they had the finishers in one location, they had people upstairs and they would just call constantly and be like, they're loud. And they're like, we're running a business.
Oh my God, Yeah, I couldn't imagine that.
Oh, wears on you when you have all your other shit going on, and then you got bad neighbors and whatnot.
A couple of my buddies had gyms like that, like literally gyms upstairs and then people below, and they, people are complaining about the noise. It's like, I mean, you can't operate that way, obviously, but it is what it is. It's crazy.
So what's it like being in the facility now?
So, right now, I mean, obviously with this COVID stuff. So again, being in New Jersey, I mean, we actually just got, it's crazy, but we just got permission to start going back inside. So we were doing a majority of our training outdoors this whole freaking summer.
Oh, that's right. Cause I saw that one gym just keeps opening, and
dude,
they're like over $150,000 worth of fines and stuff.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, so we were outside. I mean, it was like literally setting up for a graduation party every day and taking it down. Ugh. It was a freaking nightmare, man. We had tents. We had to rent tents to get tents put up in the grass. Fortunately, we're on about 2 acres of space, so we have a lot of grass. So we were able to utilize it, but it was still a pain in the ass. I mean, weight's weight. You know what I mean? If it's a 100-pound dumbbell, you're carrying a 100-pound dumbbell. There's no way. Yeah, it sucks, man. So, but we just got approval to be inside. So I guess it's the same stipulations. I haven't really sat down and looked at all the red tape. It's all these executive orders and stuff that they make you wade through. But I'm assuming it's the temperature checks. It's probably a mask. It's all that stuff.
Thank God you guys are appointment only.
Yes, yeah. So we were set up for that. Yeah, and that's what they were saying.
Social distancing. Yeah. Already.
So they told us with our we're allowed to have like 25% occupancy. So for us, because it's based off of like fire code and business and building code, all that stuff. I mean, we could have 50 people in there at a time, which we never do. We have about anywhere from 15 to 20 athletes at a given time.
Is that about what you guys keep it to, just because you're working with high level stuff where you don't want
correct and
kids running around and shit?
We want to keep it that good ratio, right? Because we like to keep it like a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio of athletes to coaches, so we can coach. You know what I mean? So we don't want to just have 50 people in there. It's not like a regular gym where you just kind of go in and do your own thing. When an athlete comes in, they go through an assessment. So we're looking for mobility, flexibility, joint ranges of motion. We're looking at muscle weaknesses, all that stuff. And what we do then is, from all that stuff we find, right? If we figure out what your weaknesses are, now we just need to program them, right? So if we train your weaknesses and make them your strengths, your performance is going to enhance, right? It's so what we do then is, after we take them through the assessment, everybody then will put together a program for them. So when the athletes come in, they'll all have their own individual program based off of the findings in the assessment. And then what we do is, we coach them through their program. So like I said, like one coach will be like 2 or 3 athletes, and we're taking them through their workout, queuing them up, working on different things. Our biggest thing, and probably one of the things we're probably really good at, is the whole injury side of things. So we're working with athletes, and a lot of it's just soft tissue injuries, especially when you're dealing with the jujitsu guys, right? They come in banged up, popped ribs and all that crazy stuff. So we do things to try to kind of injury prevention stuff. We build all that into their program to try to basically battle proof them, so give them some body armor so that stuff don't happen. That's our main goal, is we always say, like, do no harm, right? So especially when we get somebody like Grace Gundrum, when they come in, right? She's like this like precious commodity, right? It's like, do no harm, don't hurt her, right? She's a stud. So we want to train her, we want to get her better, but we're not going to load 400 pounds on her back. We're not going to do any of this stupid shit. We're going to make sure that we're programming her so we do no harm. And then our other big thing is don't get anybody hurt in training, right? Don't do anything stupid. Like you see this stuff on Instagram. You'll see these guys, they're standing on balls and they're juggling shit, right? And doing all these crazy workouts. For us, it's like, keep 2 feet on the ground. Let's make sure we do everything right. Do no harm in training. We can't get them hurt, right? We don't want accidents happen. You can have somebody, pinch a finger, putting a dumbbell back. You can do something like that, but I don't want anybody to tear an ACL in my gym, right? So we want to get them, train them, and then when they go play their sport, things happen. Injuries do happen in sport, but we can't let them happen in our facilities. That's our big thing.
How fast did the athletes start building up on your roster? Was it kind of like a word of mouth thing where you had a professional baseball player come in, and then that kind of like legitimatized you guys for like doing more pros? Or like how long did it take for you guys to kind of build the stable you're at now?
I honestly, naively, like, I think when I was first started out, I thought that's what, right? I was like, we got to get pro guys. We got to get big names, right? That's, I think, every strength coach or every person in business, right? They want everything right away, right? It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? You think you know more than you actually do when you first start out. So, that was the approach is we need pro athletes, but it doesn't happen that way, right? I think for us, our base was all the younger athletes, right? So we started with younger athletes, and then it's just word of mouth, referral. I always say referral is the best compliment you can get.
Absolutely.
Right? If somebody's going to say, hey, my kid goes here, he trains there, he got faster, then somebody else comes, obviously that person is giving us a compliment, therefore they trust us. I was going to say,
it's the best compliment you can get is getting a referral.
Right. So that was our goal. And then just over time, we started working with Scotty Heckman when he was into the MMA stuff. And then through Scott Heckman, we met Ronald Cruz, who was the boxer from Bethlehem. He was an outstanding boxer. He was, at one point, he was ranked like 17th in the world at welterweight.
That's crazy.
And that was with like Pacquiao. Now, I mean, that was a crazy weight class. So, so we started training him. And then over time, we started getting baseball. And honestly, a lot of the baseball players we got were kids that are pros now, but we started training them in high school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you train them through high school, you train them through college. There's a big loyalty thing there.
What's it like to have somebody that long?
It's pretty cool. I mean, like, I'm to the point now where I'm getting invited to their weddings and shit.
Yeah, that's
you know
crazy.
what I mean? So it's over time. Like, I'm excited to the point where I'm going to start training second generation athletes.
That's
you
nuts.
know what I mean? So that's a goal of mine. Like, I eventually want to start training kids that I once trained. You know what I mean? I don't know how. I don't know how much longer I can get on and off the floor, but I mean, that's definitely a goal of mine.
It'll still be your facility.
Yeah. So I mean, with the guys, it's good. I mean, you develop that tight relationship, but you still need to keep that coach-player relationship per se. But it's to the point where guys, and girls, they call me for advice. They, like I said, we get invited to their weddings. My wife and I mean, we in the summer times, obviously not this summer with this stuff going on, but like graduation part, we're booked out every week going to graduation parties because you work with, all these athletes. So it's a humbling experience to be included in their lives for, and kind of locked in their lives for a long time, so.
How many kids do you guys control when you're locked into the high schools like that?
So, for instance, there's days where I'll work with 250 athletes in a day, 250 to 300 athletes. So if we're in the schools in the morning, so again, in the normal summers, for instance, we'll be at like Phillipsburg High School from 7 to 12. So we have all these different teams coming in, they're rolling out. We'll have football teams of 70 kids coming in. So then what happens is once we're done with the school, then we go to our facility. And then we have kids coming in. We'll have teams come in there. So, at the end of the day, we're with 250, 300 athletes on a day in the summertime when that's like the peak of our
Now, how does that change
business.
as far as dealing with that many kids instead of the one-on-one?
So the schools, yes, are a little different, right? So it's a little more group-based. Unfortunately, you have to kind of program for the masses when it comes to that. I mean, we come heavy with coaches. We'll have 4 or 5 coaches in there at a time with the teams. So it's difficult, but we look at it as like a 4-year progression, right? So we know when we get kids coming into high school, as freshmen, it's very most of them have never worked out, never trained or did anything. So it's more of like an introductory program, right? So every year they progress, right? So as freshmen, they progress or they start out introductory. Sophomores, they start to progress. And then by their senior years, where we're kind of doing a little more advanced things and stuff like that. So we have the program set up that way, and we just kind of carry the teams through those 4 years. We set it up like a 4-year quadrennial program, basically like you would be training somebody for an Olympics. You know what I mean? Where you're training them over the course of 4 years. Now, you'll lose kids through natural attrition. They might quit. They might transfer, whatever. But that's the goal as we move forward.
There's so many moving parts.
Dude, it's
to
crazy.
What you do.
It's crazy. That's why I can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
I wake up, take a piss at 3 a.m. It's over. I'm wide awake then, doing
and then what you're
work.
focused on, what you got to do for this athlete, that athlete.
Yeah.
And then if you have an idea pop in your head.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
My wife hates me. because of it. But
that's how
she
I am with all
loves me,
this
but
stuff.
she hates me.
Well, that's why, like when you were saying that, I'm like, man, I'm like this, like that's how like Zach and JM and people I work with, you find that there's a similarity where it's just the constant. You want the constant go, 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 go.
Can't get
This,
complacent.
it's just constantly. You know, I pivot over here. I'm doing T-shirts. I pivot over here. I'm booking guests. And it's I don't know, but I've always liked that. What's attracted you to working like that? Have you always been like that as a kid, or?
I mean, I think I was always taught hard work.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was a correction officer, so he was pretty stern on us. You know what I mean? Like there'd be times where we would almost like prison yard a little bit. You know what I mean? Like get on your bunks. It's time for bed. That type of shit. But no, I mean, I because of that, I am what I am today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because of that hard work ethic. I mean, I think like any kid in high school and college, I like to screw off more than I like to work, you know? But over time, especially when I started my own business, you know what I mean? Listen, I was a state worker for a while. You get away carrying around the same piece of paper for 8 hours acting like you were doing something, you know what I mean? But when you put your feet on the ground, you know what I mean? And you got your marching orders, you know, when it's your business, you know, it's complacency will kill you, you know what I mean? So you can't let grass grow under your feet a little bit. So, you know, we have to stay moving. And I think it's because it's what I'm passionate about. You know, it's like JM and you, and, you know, when you're passionate about it and you love it, I mean, it doesn't feel like work. No. There's not a day that goes by where I'm, even when I worked up here, I used to love the drive to Nazareth when I would leave Phillipsburg to come up here. You know, I got a podcast on, or I'm just chilling, I'm listening to music, you know, I'm in the zone, right? That's that downtime by myself. It's, you know, happy to be going to work. I remember when some jobs I'd work, I'd be like, shit, let me just get a flat tire so I don't have to go here today. You know what I mean?
I told that to somebody, it was maybe last guest or 2 guests ago. I was like, as stressful as it is now, and I know it's in like its infancy and it's growing, and I'm excited because I know where it's going to be at monetarily in 2 years and where I'm going to be building this, because I can foreshadow it, and I know learning my work ethic and doing what I do is I'm not ever going to let this slip. But it's just like the fact that I get up now and like I don't have to, like, I used to get up and like it would just be like, even getting up for school, my mom would be like, are you okay? And I'd be like, no, like I don't want to do this. And it was the same thing when I would like cook, and like I'd get up and then like I'm drinking because I don't want to go to my job, and then I'm hungover going into work, and it's just like, you know, a lot of times I only worked 5 minutes down the road, and that 5-minute drive, it was some of the most depressing times ever. And now it's like all this crazy stuff's going on, and maybe it's going in the right direction, and some weeks are worse than others, and it's like, but like now it's like I get up at 5, I go for a hike, and then it's like today I went for a hike, and then my buddy's like, hey, we should go for a mountain bike ride, and I'm like, all right, my podcast at 3, I just got to be back in town around 1:32, and I'm like, let's do it. Like,
man.
Those are all the things that I wanted to do while I was like washing dishes and being like, oh God, I wish I just had like an hour to exercise, because I was working too much for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
And now that I have that in me, and it was so interesting that you said with the work ethic with your father, because I try and tell everybody, like, when, like, even if it's in a job interview and they're like, what's your best thing about you? And I was like, the work ethic my father put into me. And that's why this is what it is. It's why I fought for this business. It's why I hustle nonstop with it. And then I see how he is. And it's like, he had 4 kids working night shift at a print shop in Jersey. And like, you know, he didn't ever stop.
Yeah, just hustle. And what's crazy too is what you said about the, you know, like not liking your job. I mean, how much of the population, that's their lives, man.
I try and tell as many people as I possibly can about just like trying to find any way. Like my one friend works at a pharmacy and she hates her job, and I knew she hated her last job. She hates this job, and I keep telling her every time we get on the phone, like, yo, you need to get out of that job. You went to school for interior design and you're working in a pharmacy. What are you doing?
It's crazy. I mean, so when I first started, I worked at the men's jail. So then there's a position opened up over at the females prison. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go over there. It's probably gonna be easier, right? It's women. It's a little. Place was crazy.
Worse.
It was worse. It was off the hook. I couldn't take it.
There was probably more fights.
Yeah, there were definitely more fights.
Yeah.
Definitely more fights. And you know, so you know, I was excited to get out. But a lot of people, that's their lives, man. They get up. You know, it's like the old commercial. What the hell was it? Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
When it's time to make the donuts, right? The guy's like half asleep walking out. I mean, that's the majority of what people do. So for us to be able to do what we love, I mean, we're
and that was one of my the best things about Zach and JM's story is talking to them about like where they were when they started, and like how Zach would tell me like he worked at all the dumb places that I did, like how he used to work construction and like, he fucking hated it. And like, I remember him he's like, I was always the guy dicking off and would tell the boss to go fuck himself. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it's like, then when he got to his passion, and same with JM is a similar story of like where they sacrificed so much. And then now the stuff that's coming out of their school with Grace and Thor. Insane. And I mean, it was JM's birthday on the last Now We Go, and they just talked and told these old crazy fight stories, and he's like, oh, am I boring you? And I'm like, I don't got these stories. I love it. I'm like, these stories are crazy, but it's important for the people to like that to tell their stories. It's important if you're trying to run a business to hang around people who already are running a successful business. And Zach gave me the best advice when I was like, first I'm like, what do I do? He's like, go get a gym membership, live at that old studio you were at. He goes, I used to come out here, I'd live on the mats in the back. And I'm like, you think? And he goes, oh, I'll tell you how to live like a pirate. And it was like the best advice, because then I was like staying at the old studio, saving up money, and then it's like I couldn't afford an apartment and rent on a studio. And especially trying to do that without a job, because then you have to figure out how to sell enough t-shirts and like it's crazy.
My favorite story about those guys was when they told me how they lived in the studio in their place, and they freaking ate frozen goddamn chicken nuggets. You know what I mean? Like that's when it's yours, your business, your name on it, your passion. You're going to eat frozen chicken nuggets to make it work.
And like, that's the thing, is some people won't sacrifice that. And I've sacrificed so much for this business, and I'm sure you've done the same with yours, where it's like, I've sacrificed so much where it's ruined relationships. I haven't lived in a normal place, but now I look at things where I'm going to be at in 5 years, and I'm like, man, like, you didn't really jump the gun on getting into a place you want to live at. Like, I now have more options because I waited, where I'm like, oh, you could buy land and put a trailer on it, because you're not stuck in debt because you got into an apartment you couldn't afford, or I didn't do this and that, where I used to look at things where I was like, man, like everybody else is doing this and everybody else is doing that, and then now it's like, I think you were the safe bet doing what you wanted to.
Absolutely. I mean, I had to, I have to check myself once. I mean, I have kids, so I have to check myself once in a while and make sure that, I kind of am home doing that type of stuff, right? Because it's very easy to get lost in my world, right? In my business.
Especially if no one tells you to stop.
Right. I remember my grandfather always saying, the shoemaker's kids run around barefoot, right? And so it's the same thing, right? Like for me, it was like, you kind of neglect some things at home, but you have to find that balance, right?
Yeah.
And listen, I think the balance thing is an overused term. I don't think, if you want to be successful, you can't have balance. You can't be 100% balanced. You need to be leaning to one side a little bit, but you can't, you can't completely neglect the other side. So, for me, I definitely leaned a little more towards, making the gym successful and the name and the brand successful. Now I feel like that, not that I can take off or step back by any means, but now I can, give a little more. Like I said, now
you're getting more time than you would have if you would have balanced. You would have had the same time, where now you can spend more time with your family because 100%. You built a stronger foundation.
Yep, no doubt.
Well, when did the kids come into play?
So my daughter is 15. She's a sophomore in high school. And then my son is 12. He's going into 7th grade. They're not going to school, obviously, because of this COVID stuff. They're virtual or whatever, which I want.
Good luck, teachers.
I want them to freaking go to school so bad, man.
Yeah.
And my wife's a teacher. But so I mean, my daughter's a very good field hockey player. My son loves lacrosse, so it's fun. So I get to train them at the gym. So they come in, and again, they get to work out with.
Does it hit them what you have there?
No, of course not, man. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know shit. You know what I mean? Like when they're
whatever,
there,
Dad.
Whenever they're there, I have to have the other coaches work with them because I don't know shit. I don't know anything, right?
That's so funny.
Literally, my program, the other coaches are doing it with them. But it's like when dads will bring their kids in, or parents will bring their kids in, and they're like, I tell them the same shit. They don't listen to me. They're going to listen to you. It's like that.
I was the same way.
Of course, we all are. Your dad doesn't know shit. But.
What's funny is now that I'm older, I start having conversations with him where I'm like, hey, man, you remember when you said all that shit? And he's like, yep. I'm like, I get it now. And then he'll just laugh and be like, I told you.
And
then you always forget that they lived an entire life before you.
Right? That's what I say now, man. I hit 45 and I'm the most wise person I ever was now. You know what I mean? Like, I love where I'm at right now with my age.
I told everybody I was excited to turn 40 and they were like, you're crazy. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I heard 40 to 50 is the most mentally sound you'll be.
I freaking love where I'm at. I don't give a shit what people think of me anymore. You know, you don't have to worry about that.
It's funny how that starts dying off.
Right?
Yeah, it's good though.
It's over. I mean, I don't care. You don't have to stress over it. So it is. I feel like, you know, you take all those life experiences growing up, right? When you're a teenager, when you're, you know, dealing with all that teenage shit, you know, and then as you get older and in college in your 20s, right? You're out partying, you're kind of a wild child. You kind of go through that side, and then, you know, you meet your spouse or however it happens, right? And things start to settle down. But like I said, right now, I would say probably 40, 41, 42 is where I started to really like, man, I like my mindset. You know what I mean? I love where my mind is right now.
I'm the same way. I kept getting excited because I was excited to hit 30 because I'm just a big fan of like mental and like just always had depression and stuff. So like it's always been like a thing for me having to pay attention to my mental state. Where I have, you know, brothers or friends that are just like doody doo. I'm just like over here.
I'm the same way, man. I'm wound tight. I'm freaking get anxious.
But it's like when I turned 30, I was excited. Then 35, I was excited, and then I talked to a couple people, or like from reading books or people coming on podcasts, they're like like 40 is the most mentally sound. But when you turn 40, and then like all the lights are on, and then it's like, I think I was talking to Jam about it. But it's like then at 50, like 40 to 50, like that's the best time you will have mentally.
And then we start losing our goddamn mind as we get older.
It's weird to watch him. I'll ask my dad stuff now, and I'll be like, "You remember when you said that to me?" And I'll be like, "Nah, man." I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. But like I said, I'm glad I am where I am right now from a mental side. You know what I mean? But that's the one thing, you hit the nail on the head saying where, I feel like you have to work on the mental side.
Oh, you
right?
have to.
You have to work on your meditation. I always tell everybody, and I tell all the athletes, meditation has changed my life, man. Like for me, it's just, and I'm not burning incense. I'm just sitting and breathing for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes.
Do you do it as soon as you wake up?
I do. I do it a couple times a day, actually.
What's your routine?
Like literally, I sit down. I start taking my breaths. I count my breaths. I just focus on my breathing. I try to work on that like 6-second inhale, 6 to 10 second exhale, and I just chill. That's it, man. I just sit there and nothing. It took me a while to get there. I mean, it's not easy. You know what I mean?
No, I had a therapist, or my current therapist. I had a section in my life where I had a ton of anxiety, and I'm not a big pill guy. I don't like being on pill.
Me neither.
I was on pills when I was a kid. I didn't have a choice. And then when I was 18, I was like, I'm done with this stuff. And then she would be like, do your breathing techniques. So like I would have these like mild panic attacks, and I would sit, and then I would do the breathing. And they said, what's funny is she was telling me that that's why a lot of people are addicted to smoking, because it's not so, I mean, you get addicted to the nicotine and whatnot, but the calming of like wanting a cigarette is because you're breathing. You're taking in the hits, And I was like, man, I never even thought of that.
So they found actually when you do breathing like that, you're actually releasing nitrous oxide, right? So like laughing gas. Right. So that's why you kind of get that like calming feeling. So that's why like I'm big into the nasal breathing. Right. So that's like a big thing now.
What's nasal breathing?
So nasal breathing is
it all through
you're
your nose?
just basically breathing through your nose the whole time. Right. So there's even been some training methods. I mean, we don't do them because they're a little kind of radical, but where they'll actually tape an athlete's mouth closed, and they'll do a whole training session where they're just nasal breathing the whole time.
Oh my God. I would have a panic attack.
It's tough, bro. It's tough. Like you're struggling, man. You're struggling. But shit, I mean, with these masks anymore that they're making everybody wear, right? I mean, it's kind of like it, right? It's like a hand over your face. But, so like stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm reading a book right now called Breath. I can't remember the author, but it's just all about that stuff. It's a great book to like kind of.
Have you always been big into reading?
Dude, huge.
Yeah.
Well, not always. Not always. I would say in the last 10 years, probably. My rule for myself is to read at least 10 pages every day. So if I read 10 pages every day, what's going to take me 20 minutes, maybe half hour if it's a dry read. But if I read 10 pages, right? So in 30 days, in a month, I'm reading 300 pages, which is essentially a book. You know what I mean? Like, so you could read, I tell everybody, read 10 pages a day. I try to read 10 pages of a book I want to read, and then 10 pages of a book that I might not be into, but it might be like, investment stuff or financial stuff, something that's kind of like, but you need to learn about it.
I always struggle with it. And then Zach always doesn't call me out, but his always answer is to Audible.
Yeah, well, I do a ton of Audible.
I'm like, why don't I do that? I listen to podcasts.
Freaking ton of Audible, man.
Yeah.
I'm a big Audible guy. I just listened to a book called Tribe by Sebastian Unger. It's a great book. And it kind of, it mirrors a little bit of what's going on today. Well, at least it, shouldn't say mirror it, but it kind of gives you the reason why some of this stuff is going on today. So it kind of puts some things in perspective. But yeah, I'm a big, like if I cut the grass, it takes me like 2 hours. I'll throw my headphones on and, listen to a book for 2 hours. You know what I mean?
I need to do more of that.
So I try to take advantage of everything, because if not, like there's really not time to sit. You know what I mean? Like when you're constantly running around, I try to take advantage of all my downtime, and I try to listen to books and read and
how do you take all that knowledge of like how you trained yourself to read a lot? Because it is, unless like I was never good at reading, ADD or whatever they wanted to, and then so there was points where I was really into reading and I could plow through books. And then with you're saying like you're like everything you talk about is like, that's what I love, but it's hard for me to keep maintaining that. So how do you take all the things that you learn to do these things that better you mentally, physically, and all that? How do you apply that into somebody who's coming in and they need all that and you have to train them?
It's definitely a process, right? We always say we work to like an analogy basically is we base everything on progression. So exercises are based on progression, right? So I'm not gonna, if I get an athlete that comes in the door, I know where they want to be. So if they tell me their season starts in 4 months, I know where we have to be at that 4-month mark. So what we do is we basically reverse engineer and we work backwards from that, right? So everything is, we know where we want to be, and then we just regress it for those 4 months, right? So it's the same thing when we start talking about like this stuff, the mental side, the reading, that type of stuff is, start out slow, start out small. You know what I mean? Read, get 1% better every time, right? If I get 1% better every day, you know what I mean? In 100 days, I'm 100% better than I was 100 days ago. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just starting in small doses, And I even say, even with our training, and that's what I think, like my methodology and our approach to training mirrors basically my life, how I live my life.
Well, that was the next question I was going to follow up is this something that you learned how to do on your own, and then now you're instilling it in to these athletes that are coming in and it's working?
Absolutely. So, I think too, it's like, it's people that are good at their jobs and good in their profession. You have to be good at stealing things, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but you need to learn from smarter people than you, right? So if you listen to smarter people and you beg, borrow, and steal their stuff, right? And it's like if we're in school together in class and I'm the teacher and I say, listen, you can cheat. I'm going to let you guys cheat. You better make sure you're cheating off the smartest person in the room, right? Because if you're cheating off the dummy, you're going to get Fs, right? So it's always like, for me, I always try to find the smartest people, and they're the people that I try to learn from, and they're the people that I'll take maybe their methods or their thought process or their things, and then we tweak it and mold it to fit our narrative or our facility or whatever we're trying to get, and then we just kind of work it into our system. But the one thing I will say is like, it goes back to training too. If you're going to start adding things in your life, sometimes some things have to get cut from your life too, right? You can't just keep adding, because then, it's like training. Like if we just keep adding exercises, we're going to have people in the gym for 2 hours. We want them in and out of there in an hour, hour and 15. So, when you start adding things, sometimes you have to start taking things out too. And that's a tough lesson to.
It's so interesting you said that, because it's something that I'm going through now with like my workloads. And it's like, I try and look at what I can be doing for the show. And then it's like, sometimes I have to like I asked my friend on the hike today, and I'm like, well, what do you think about this? Am I doing too much? How much of this am I doing for other people? And it's taking away from the radio show. So if I'm doing too much helping other people out and putting other people's programs on, and if I take on another podcast, I'm looking at my time and being like, man, like, how much time is that taking to do that? And if you were applying that into yourself, is that better for you? Because that's going to you and that's going to build your brand. And then sometimes I'm like, well, am I being selfish with that? But then at the same time, it's like, well, what is your end goal? Is your end goal to get to where you want to be, where you want to buy a piece of property and put a small square on it and call it your house? Yeah. Or do you want to keep doing favors for other people and stay in a basement?
Listen, I'm probably one of the worst people at saying no.
Yeah, me too. Mine's from my mom. Yes. My mom was way too nice.
Dude, same thing. Same way here. My dad again was tough. My mom was, she was the mom. She was a stay-at-home mom. So, she took care of us all the time. My dad worked 2 or 3 jobs, and she would, feed us and clothe us and do all that stuff, right? Do what moms did. And, so yeah, I mean, you ask my wife, she gets not mad, but, I don't say no to a lot of things. And especially when I first started out, I felt like I couldn't say no to anything because I'm like, if I say no, I'm going to miss an opportunity, And then over time, you start to kind of filter some things out. But I have to say, doing those things and being kind and overreaching and over delivering in our business has never freaking steered me wrong.
No.
Never freaking steered me wrong. So, but you have to, again, going back to the quote unquote balance thing, like you have to figure that out a little bit. And
it seems like you have like a ton of discipline, you have a ton of knowledge, and you have a ton of experience in all these different areas. And I feel like you broke all that down and you apply it into a system in order to build these athletes up, taking things that you learned and giving to them, or taking away and kind of taking your platform for success and then molding it into these people and kind of giving and taking what they need in order to reach the next goal.
Shit, man, I couldn't say that any better. Actually,
it's interesting.
You just made me feel really good, right?
It's interesting.
It is cool how that all folds out like that. But yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's what it is. Like again, when I first started, I just so. Real quick backstory. In 1998, I was in a real 97. I was in a real bad motorcycle accident. Actually, what's the date today? 27th.
Hold on. Yes, 27th.
Shit. So 25. What will it be? 23 years tomorrow. Tomorrow's the 23rd anniversary since my motorcycle accident. So I was riding my motorcycle, got hit by a car, shattered my tibia, right? Lower part of my leg, completely shattered it. So, hospital, all that stuff, they casted it, they set it. Well, the bone never healed. It's what they called a non-union. So I was literally years of walking around on a broken leg. My tibia was broken still. It was fibrous tissue formed, but it wasn't bone growth. So every time I stepped, there'd be some bone flex, right? So it was a very painful process. And I was in such pain, I couldn't figure out, I wanted to figure out ways to get myself out of pain versus what you just said before without taking pills and doing that, right? Going down that road. So what I did was I just basically threw myself into learning, physical therapy and all that different stuff, right? Different methodologies of, so over time, eventually they did a experimental, what the heck was it? It was, where they perfused the bone marrow down, a stem cell. So they injected the stem cell into my tibia, and again, it was good. It's completely fine now. I have some like leg length discrepancy things that I had to deal with, to this day. But I was always in pain, so I wanted to figure out how to get myself out of pain, right? So I spent all this time. I talked to doctors, I reached out to people, and kind of like self-educated, self-researched. And then because my actual college degree is in like criminal sociology, so that's why I originally started working at the prisons. I was going to change the world. I was going to do all that stuff, right? But over time, but anyway, so I went through that whole process. But in the meantime, what I learned from that is, self-care. If nobody's going to heal you, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically, right? Like doctors are going to tell you, they're going to recommend you, they're going to recommend things, they're going to do this, but ultimately it starts with you. You know what I mean? So I think over time, like learning that from that traumatic experience, and then just learning these different systems and different things, because I was able to take what I was learning from doctors and learning from self-research, and I was able to apply it to myself and see those direct results. So then over time, it's like every portion of my life, I started pulling things from here and putting it here. You know what I mean? So you kind of put this all together, and then you develop, and then as it curtailed or went over to the business side of things, it all mirrors back, to the way you live your life, to the way you work you operate your business and all that stuff. I mean, so I think over time, the way you said that, I think that's probably the best way how everything kind of rolled out for me and my train of thought anyway was certain.
Isn't it weird when there's a mirror thing and you're like, oh, this is what I'm doing when I had all that stuff going on, but now I put it into a positive, not that that wasn't negative, but like you put it into like a positive business structure. And then like, there's a lot of moments where I'm like, man, I'm doing what I did when I got my life together, except for now I'm just applying everything I learned. Like this whole thing started when I got sober, and I'm no longer sober. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because everyone always questions why I did it. And why I did it was I wanted to see if the tools that I built worked. Yeah. So that would be like you having an athlete, and you, for 10 years, you worked on this athlete, and you were like, can you do it?
Go play.
Yeah, go play. So it's like, yeah, believe me, the first time I drank was a nightmare. Yeah. But I was like, but then you learn everything I learned in therapy and all that. But there's a lot of times where, I'm like right now I'm like striving to get my weight down and like work on stuff. And I'm like, all right, like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, you're going to do what you did when you got your life together and you were jogging 8 miles a day and you were doing all this stuff. And it's weird how that those life lessons, you can apply them in business, and you can apply them in a positive manner to affect people around you, and you can change people's lives because you changed your own life. And I think that that's a missing link to a lot of the ways people look at people. And it's like, well, why are they there? Or they look at these people on pedestals, and you shouldn't be seeing how they got on that pedestal. You should be seeing like what sacrifices or things that they used to change their life.
Consistent habits is huge. And that's the thing too, right? Everybody thinks like everyone's an overnight success. You're not an overnight success, man. No, you just don't wake up one day. It takes years that the shit people don't see. No. It's sacrifices.
When I started the clothing company, everyone always said to me, oh man, this is going to be the next big thing. And I wanted it to be the next big thing. And then I pushed it as far as you can go by yourself without a team of people and a shitload of money.
Right.
And then I'm just like, oh, this isn't this isn't like where somebody sees a t-shirt and they're like, oh, wow. And then, like you have to call companies like PacSun isn't contacting. They might do that now with the way social media works. But like back then it was just, there wasn't Instagram.
Right.
And then it's just like, all right, well, these t-shirts aren't going to sell themselves. And then you start realizing the work behind it. And then I set what's crazy is I set a 10-year mark. And then within that 10 years, it didn't turn into this, I do okay with the t-shirts, but what it turned into was now, because I ran t-shirts, I can now run a business inside of a podcast. And now I can do all this. And it's like, it was the things I learned running a business where I grew up. You know what I mean? Like I stopped being a shithead when I quit drinking. It's like, you know what I mean? And then there was just such an obsessed focus on business and structure and all this stuff. And then like, I have people who come up to me and like, how do you do this podcast stuff? And how do you do this stuff? And I'm telling them, but I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, I did all this crazy shit to better my life, and that's why I know how to do this. And it isn't anything other than you just have to change your life and start making better decisions. And then if you share that with people, which is awesome that you do and you created a business around it is where you get the best results.
Yeah, I mean, dude, again, you hit the nail on the head with all that stuff. I mean, it's huge. I mean, that stuff is absolutely huge. You know, and you know, for us, I mean, what is my goal moving forward? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, as far, and when I say I don't know, like, the goal for me was always what you were just saying. Like, I wanted to grow it to be like, you know, the biggest thing in the world, right? Or the biggest thing in the East Coast, on the East Coast, you know. But over time, and again, not that I'm complacent, but I'm content. I'm happy, right? I'm happy where I'm at. I'm happy with the athletes we train. I'm happy with the contracts we have. Or is there room for more stuff? Absolutely. You know, I get, you know, I'll get, you know, phone calls all the time. People, you know, some big scheme, or not scheme, but big like plan coming. Like, you know, I've been in talks with a couple people about, you know, possibly putting our a portion of our facility into a baseball facility, right? So, you know, there's things like that. There's things that come down the pipe that you know, but now I'm content where I am to the point that I can maybe deflect some of that stuff.
That's a good feeling.
I can, you know, push that off, and you know, not that COVID has helped financially by any means.
No, I don't think
you know what I mean?
I guess some people made money.
I think
Amazon.
some people, I mean, Amazon killed it, man. Walmart,
DoorDash.
Target, they fucking killed
Grubhub.
it, man. But fucking gyms and normal,
toilet paper companies.
Yeah, toilet paper companies. Stock
how crazy is it that your kids will look back on all this? Dude. And I feel like at that point, and this is my opinion, but it's going to look back as like one of the biggest fucking ridiculous things that were like, I don't know, like there's definitely like learning in high school where like you look back on things and like the teachers laughing about like, oh, this went on in the 60s.
Oh, shit, man. I remember, again, so I was in high school when it was the Cold War, right? When we were going to go to war with Russia, and it was going to be the nuclear.
It was the Russian attack for Nintendo.
Thank God Rocky Balboa ended that fucking shit in Rocky 4, right? But I remember that shit in school. Like, it was like they would show us how to get under desks and shit. When, like, you know what I mean? And now you look back, you're like, damn, you're crazy. Yeah, get under the desk for a nuclear bomb. You're safe, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's how it's going to be.
But this is how it's going to be. And you know, that's why, you know, for me, I think, you know, obviously the virus is a thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
But the reaction to it was
insane.
Fucking insane. Insane, man.
Yeah, I mean, it put a lot of businesses in terrible places, and it's exciting to meet. Like I told you before, it was great having Zach and JM next to me during all that, because I don't know what I would have done without their support of, like, you know, it's nice to call somebody and then be like, nah, fuck all this shit.
But and that's the thing too, like being in business, like the people you meet, right? Like, I met those dudes like JM and Zach, and I consider them friends now.
Absolutely.
You know? And when they come into the gym, it's legit like a therapy session for me. We're talking about business, right? We're talking about, like, you know, JM, like, I mean, I talk to him, and, you know, it's same thing, like, you know, customers and dealing with the public, and that's not always the easiest thing to do. You know, JM, he's a little one way for me, but you know, I learn a lot from those guys just talking to them, because
they know a lot.
Super smart dudes.
They know a lot.
They're super smart dudes, and they're super smart in not just their business, but just life in general. You know, they're down to earth dudes.
And I feel they do it the same way, where I pointed out, and it's like, that's why we see it in them, where they take all of their life experiences. Like, dude, they were talking about, like, fighting. They were 18, 19, fighting 45-year-old men. Yeah. Like, dude, that changed. You know what I mean? Like,
that'll
you know what I mean? Like, that takes a specific type of person to do that.
Absolutely. I say that all the time. I mean, I don't know how these dudes, they literally get punched for a living. You know what I mean? It was like that when I trained, you know, Scotty Heckman, you know, it was like, that was his job was to fight, you know what I mean? And it was like, shit, like he would come in and do, and he was notorious for this. He drove me freaking crazy. I hope he listens to this shit. Cause he would come in, right? We would train him for a camp, or usually we would try to do 8-week camps with our fighters, right? We figured out over time that 8 weeks was like the perfect time for us, because they have so many other things going on, right? Especially MMA guys. They're kickboxing, they're jujitsu, they're wrestling, they're boxing, you know, and then they're trying to strength train with me, and then they're trying to get road miles in on top of it, right? So, you know, it was tough, but we would literally do an 8-week camp, roll into a fight. a week later, 2 weeks later, he's like, hey, I got another fight. We're going in 6 weeks. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, how the hell? You know, but again, like those dudes, like JM and those guys, like, they're passionate and they're just what we talked about, right? They're always on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
How am I going to get better? And even when you talk to JM about stuff, like when these guys, like they'll go out and they'll compete and if they lose, it's not like we train a lot of other sports like football teams and football athletes, right? When they lose a game, it's like the end of the world, right? Tears, punching lockers, and this. When you see these guys and they compete and they lose, they're humbled about it, right? They use it as a learning experience, right? When I go to some of these jujitsu things and I see these guys compete, they'll literally roll with somebody. You know, they might tap the guy out or get tapped out. 2 minutes later, they're sitting over on the ground talking to each other, sharing their things.
That was the first thing I told Zach. I noticed when I started just showing up to the finisher stuff and recording a little bit of things, and it's intimidating. I never did solo sports. I never did. You know, I never went to like a karate class, so it's intimidating to walk into those classes.
Sure.
And they're very accepting there, and it's, you know, a lot easier than other places I've attempted to go into. And that was the first thing I said to Zach. I go, wow, what a fucking, just a weirdly humble, accepting community of people who are just really nice to each other. I mean, I'm sure there's a few assholes in there, but for the most part, it's crazy watch. And then like what's crazy is I started going to the finisher things, and there's these big matches, and then I realized that these guys are the best of the best in Jersey and over here, and then they're all friends.
Yeah, right.
They train with each other.
Exactly, and that kind of blew my mind to see that, because again, when in my business, right, we're training athletes. We're training them to be better athletes, to win, basically, right? So when they don't win or you know, something happens, it's like you kind of feel like it's your fault. Whereas on that side of the things with jiu-jitsu, they use it as a learning experience.
When did the jiu-jitsu community start really coming in for you guys? I
would say, so I started working with Grace when she was 13, so she's now 18. So five years with that young lady, who is absolutely freaking amazing. And I think I started with JM and them a little bit before that, so probably almost a year before.
Were they the first jiu-jitsu people?
They were the first jiu-jitsu guys. So I started working with them through Scott Heckman. Yeah, because he was training with me, but then training over there with those guys. And, you know, same thing. They got talking like, dude, where do you do your strength training at? He's like, I go to this guy in Maid and this, that, the other. So then they're like, I got to check this guy out. And then, you know, the rest is history, you know, we just kind of, but I would say probably around that, I don't know, 2014, 2015 time slot time.
Have you noticed that it picked up now, helping train for jiu-jitsu stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, when these guys have their events and stuff, I mean, I'm always getting hit up on Instagram and stuff from the jiu-jitsu community, you know, asking me questions, and I freaking love it. Like, you know, I send them workouts, I'll do different things to kind of help them, and you know, I mean, that's kind of anywhere. There for a while, we had a big influx of Irish dancers. We were training Irish dancers all over.
Was that when there was like that weird pop and they were doing it at like the State Theater and like the Irish dancing thing just kind of came through?
Yeah. So we, I mean, they were bringing me out they were flying some of these Irish dancing schools were flying me out to their schools to give seminars on how to train and stuff. I'm like, damn, I don't know. Look, so for us with the Irish dancers, you know, it was more of an injury prevention standpoint, right? They're wearing shoes that are 2 sizes too small, so they stay up on their toes. So their ankles were banged up, their knees, their foot arches, all that stuff. So, you know, we just took the approach of, you know, let's make you feel good again, right? They're not in there doing back squats and bench press and shit like that, right? They're learning how to kind of move again, because they kind of lose that good quality movement because they're altering and compensating different things.
There's been so many moments where, and this is why I like interviewing people, is you start seeing where the appeal is to do this. And like, how crazy would that be to be approached by Irish dancers and then you bring it back to the crew and you're like, all right, now we got to figure out where nothing's ever the same. The athletes are constantly changing. The programs are constantly changing because each program for each person is completely different. And then you have all these things, and then you learn all these things, and then you get to take all these things that you learn and apply it to them to help all these people out. And then you just keep getting to help a shitload of different people constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. So, I mean, even like when we start training our baseball guys, you're talking rotational athletes, right? So now you're talking where you got to train this trunk rotation, and different things like that. Whereas football guys, you're training them, they live in their hips, right? So we got to chase their hips and make sure they're loose and they're strong in their hips. And, then we turn and we're training a 100-meter, athlete, a track athlete that it's speed, but in all actuality, though, and I say this to everybody, and the guys who work with me know this, that ultimately, if you came in the gym and you looked at all the athletes training, I don't think you could really tell what sport they were playing by just walking in there and looking at their workouts, right? So the point of that is the workouts don't change that much, because at the end of the day, we're training human movement, right?
Yeah.
They need to move well, and they need to move correctly, right? We always say quality over quantity all the time. So at the end of the day, the training itself may not look very different, but when we get to some of our prehab exercises, injury prevention stuff, that's where things start to kind of curtail a little bit. So like you take a jujitsu guy versus a football player, right? So their program isn't going to look much different, but I will tell you where it starts to differentiate from is the conditioning, right? The cardio starts to change a little bit. The grip strength of things start to change a little bit for the jujitsu guys. You know what I mean? We're going to focus a little more on grip strength, whereas football, we're going to focus a little more on speed, right? So that's where those things start to change. But the bulk of their program from an exercise standpoint doesn't really change
It's
much.
just kind of moving the meters onto where,
exactly.
All right, hey, we're going to go like a video game when you got to create a character.
Exactly.
So you're like, all right, I'm going to move this up because I want my guy to be better at this. Move this down. You need to move all these over.
Exactly. And it's the same thing. Like, we train a lot of baseball guys. So we know what our baseball guys, their shoulders are a big deal. Their elbows are a big deal, right? So we need to build things in that's going to, help that so they don't get, UCL pain in their elbow or torn labrum or something like that. So maybe a majority of their stuff looks just like a football player's a little bit, right? So, but when we get to like where we're doing upper body stuff, like we're not going to bench press our baseball guys. You know what I mean? Where our football guys are going to bench press. You know what I mean? So just those variables change a little bit, right? And some of the goals are a little different. But I say it all the time, if we had big windows in front of our gym and people were in there peeking in the windows seeing what we were doing, it wouldn't look much different. Like you wouldn't be able to see like, oh, that's a football guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a jujitsu guy. You might be able to see because the jujitsu guys usually don't have their shoes on in the gym, right? The football guys are usually monsters, right?
Yeah.
So it's the appearance that's the difference. But from a programming standpoint, it doesn't really change. It's just those little things, right? Those little details that a lot of people overlook. But if we can pay attention to those little details, like I said, those exercises that are going to help them, maybe it might be grip strength, it might be, shoulder rotation or whatever like that. So that's where I think that's where the money is, right? The devil's in the details when it comes to that type of stuff. It's not the big money exercises.
Good for you, man. I want to start wrapping up just because I don't want to keep you here all day. And we would sit here all day.
Yeah, I could.
We started talking as soon as you walked in, and we were like, I think I always had an appeal to bring you on just once the guys started working with you, and they speak highly of you. And then when Tucker started working with you, they spoke highly of you as well. So it's like I really had an appeal to just kind of dig in. And even today, I was just like, I wonder like what it's going to be about. And like I knew you were doing like strength and conditioning stuff, but then to like dive in and to dial it in to where I kind of know exactly where all this comes from. It's such a positive, creative avenue that it's so awesome that you can help this many people because you completely got your shit together. And like, I mean, it's awesome. I can relate to a lot of stuff, and I really want to have you on an episode of Now We Go, and we'll set it. I'll figure out how to set it up, but I really want to have you, Zach, and JM in the same room.
I'd love to, man.
Yeah,
I would love to.
I just want to thank you for coming on. I've been wanting to do this for years, and I'm glad that we are now doing it video, and I'm at a different level with this, and I know how to interview a lot better. Yeah. So I think the best version of this came out because we waited. And anyone who's interested in contacting you for just signing up for stuff, or if there's somebody who's listening who's connected to a school district and they think that you might be able to help them out, what is the best way to get a hold of you completely or to follow your social media?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, you know, we're on all social media channels. We're on Instagram, Made Strength. We're on Twitter, Made Strength, Facebook, Made Strength page. And then, you know, website is www.madestrength.com. So all our information on there, phone number, you can reach out to me, you know, through, like, you and I message each other through Instagram, easy to get a hold of you. You know, all that stuff. So, you know, we have all the bases covered with all that stuff. And then basically what we do is, you know, when somebody reaches out, we set up a time where they come in and we'll take them through an assessment and a workout, right, to see if we're a good fit for them. I always tell everybody that, you know, let's bring them in, you know, bring him or her in. We'll take them through an assessment. We'll take them through an eval. We'll take them through a workout, and we'll see if we're a good fit for them, because, you know, maybe we're not. You know, we've already worked with athletes that, you know, we worked with them for a little bit, and then they go train at somewhere else, you know what I mean? Which, you know, maybe we just, that stuff used to, like, keep me up at night. I'd be like, what the hell are we doing wrong? You know, why did that? And it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it's, you know, it's that loyalty thing, right? But however, you know, maybe just we weren't a good fit, you know? So over time, you know, that you just kind of, you grow and you realize, and maybe you fix some of the mistakes that you thought you made. But yeah, so, you know, we'll bring them in and we take them through an assessment and see if it's a great fit for them. And then from there, everything's done, you know, online. They schedule their appointments through the online scheduler, and then, you know, we get them rolling. And then we, you know, we do, and that's the one thing with us is, you know, with our facility, we don't do contracts, right? You come in, you do.
I'm so glad everyone's getting rid of that stuff.
Dude, that shit was
dude, I had
brutal, bro.
Joined a Gold's Gym in Virginia and then moved home, and it was a nightmare. Nightmare.
I refuse to. I never did that. Yeah. I just. Like you said, man, I mean, how many times you're locked in, and that's what a lot of these big chain facilities, that's how they make their money, right? You take a place like Planet Fitness or something, right?
I didn't know they were back open. They charged me for 2 months now. I'm canceling as soon as I get a chance to go over there.
But that's what happens. People join and then they go a little bit, right? And then they don't go, but they $10 out of their account every month, but it's not a big deal, right, to you, but they're charging, you know, a million people $10.
And then the way they build that up, and it's like, what a genius plan of, like, feeding people bagels and donuts and telling them it's okay. And then if somebody's hard on somebody, then you know you can't say that, and then they keep you in that complacent. Because I'm in it now where I'm, like, trying to lose weight, but it's hard and I'm not watching my eating, and then you hang out there for like 10 months. And then I'm like, wow, like, they just, what they want is only people who hang out there.
That's their business model.
What a genius way to make a bunch of money.
Their business model is buy your membership. We don't give a shit if you come. We don't care if you like what we do, right? But just pay us, and if you want to use it. And the price is the price. And we have a tanning salon if you just want to come and do that. $10. Everybody's like, shit, $10. I spend that at Wawa every day. You know what I mean? So, and that's what happens with that stuff. But yeah, so we don't do contracts, and then we get them rolling, man. And then what usually, you know, we usually have, again, it depends, but we'll usually have athletes anywhere from 2 to 4 months. That's essentially like an off season for athletes. And then they go play their sport, and then they come back, you know, and sometimes, you know, they'll do in-season stuff if they have the time, but, you know, that's our business model, you know, and it's very simple, just like our training method, right? Keep it simple. So
well, I'm glad you give a shit.
Yeah, I do give a shit, man. I
do. Once again, thank you for coming on, and I'll put all the information tagged in there below, and if anybody has any questions, they can get back to either of us, or I can get your information. I always fuck up the end of the show because I don't know how to close it. It's the worst. But if anybody needs any of the information, they can contact me as well. If you're a first-time listener, you can subscribe to the YouTube, and everything we have is on the website, and you can check it out there. But thank you, and I want to do more stuff, so
thank you.
We'll talk more after this is over, but I want to bring you on Now We Go, because once we start getting guests on Now We Go, that's going to change that show even more, and I'm excited to do more with that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.